at the moment with AI, everyone thinks they can just do the exact same thing with AI and 3 minutes later have an app instead of 3 weeks. So it's accelerating that misconception that it's easy to build software and it's quick. How do we not just plan the right product, but ensure we're talking to the right people so the product can get used? Make sure that there's ROI in there. We build tools with it, and we've got our own AI platform that we're utilizing it, but it needs to serve the right purpose. So it's not just dropping it into a tool. It needs to actually save you time.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Anyone that's looking to do a software project and bring something into the business, just stop and think about what you're actually trying to do and what's it going to do for the business.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Anthony Sapountzis. He is the co-founder and CTO of Aerion Technologies, where they supercharge your business success with AI and process automation to take your digital strategy to the next level, boost ROI, and achieve amazing results. Get custom apps, APIs, systems, IoT, fintech solutions, you name it, to grow your business. Welcome, Anthony, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Nathan. It's a pleasure to sit here on the other side of the seat this week.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I was recently just on Anthony's podcast. He interviewed me, which is amazing. Forward to that coming out. And now I'll be able to repay the favor and hear more about you, mate, which is always great, right? On that. So it's going to be a great show, I'm sure, for everyone watching and listening today. You are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself by telling us, more about you and your journey.
I would say successful loosely. We're in business after 17 years. So it's got to mean something. It was actually 17 years last week when the business was actually registered. So for those who don't know, my name's Anthony Sapountzis. We're based down in Melbourne. I am co-founder and CTO of Aerion Technologies, which is a business we started in 2008 while I was in my final year of uni. So I was studying my computer science games programming degree in doing my honors year. Had a third person who's no longer with the business that come up to me and said, do you want to join a startup that we were doing? And I'm like, yeah, all right, why not? No risk, living at home, no kids. I'm like, all right, let's just jump into this. So I started the business, finished my honors, tutoring and working at Coles at the same time, because this business wasn't paying anything at the start. And we've just evolved ever since then, tackling small websites where we first started and just evolving into better quality products and learning the right way to do things from various mistakes that we've gone along the way.
Yeah,
that's
awesome,
in a
man.
nutshell that journey.
Yeah, I love where it all starts, right? And it's great that you got in early, and you got to test it when there's less risk, and make those mistakes, right? Because there's always plenty of mistakes and failures along the business journey. And credit, man. 17 years is amazing, right? In a business journey, I think it's like crazy that I think it's like 95% plus don't make it to 10 years, right? In terms of
I think it's 50% or 80% don't make it past year 2.
Yeah, right. So it just shows you in that area there. So yeah, well done for keeping that going. And yeah, let's get into it for today. So I love tech, right? Like I was grateful enough that my parents took me to a computer place at 6 years old. Future Kids in Adelaide. Got to learn off Windows 3.1 back in the day. Blue screen. And then just be around tech. Now I never really developed. I know you got the developer side of you, but I've always sort of been that middleman between IT and the business. I think it's so important, right? This area here, especially as we want to automate things and everything in a business, right? So I think it's going to be a great to have you here today and talk more about this for the people that don't understand it, right, as much. So, because there's a lot of like tech software on the market, right? So there's things of like you can get things off the shelf, right? But obviously they're not that customizable, right, in there, or you can get something that's customized, right? To build something that's more tailor fitted. So do you want to talk maybe just firstly about these differences and the benefits, right, of being able to do something that's more customized?
So there's off the shelf, as you mentioned, no configuration. Then there's configurable products, and then there's full custom. The biggest differences between off the shelf and custom is off the shelf, you get it as it is. Like you buy a car, whatever it comes with, you do it. If you want to start modifying it, that goes down to like the configuration route. So you start changing things yourself, or you've got the tools inside of the product to allow you to start changing settings, adding different statuses and things like that. So it's a configurable workflow. And that's what, say, Salesforce gets you to a degree. We can set up a workflow, or SAP or Dynamics if you're in the larger businesses. If you're in the smaller ones, you've got like Monday.com and ClickUp, for example. Organizational tools allow you to map processes, define tasks and statuses, and that's a configurable tool. The custom is where you want to try and separate and differentiate from your competitors by having software that not only maps to your workflow, it becomes your competitive advantage compared to the other businesses. Because if they're all using those tools, they're going to be limited in what they can do because the tools only provide certain guardrails to let you go off the rails so you can customize things where you can make yours match your exact business process and that sort of becomes your secret, your special sauce. And then eventually, if it's good enough, that ends up being a product that can come to the market long term too. That's
Yeah.
generally how the sort of split across the three is.
Yeah, I love that split. Great way of putting it there. And side note for me as well, I was when I dropped out of high school, right, in year 12, and got a job at a big environmental company, and I was the super user for SAP, right,
Yep.
for the state and the whole country, and that's a beast of a system that they configured for millions of dollars. And I think once I learned that, it was like, okay, well, systems become easier, right? Once you understand generally how systems work, all of that. And really, to my understanding, if we just give people a little bit of a step back at a higher level, right? I remember seeing it as SAP was like, and a lot of systems are just basically tables, right? That are all
Yep.
linking together. Do you want to maybe, I don't know, expand a little
Yeah.
bit
Okay.
on that?
So
Yeah.
the easiest way for people to probably understand that, everyone hears the word database, but if you're not in the tech space, you can picture a database like Excel. Excel gives you multiple sheets with different data you can put in it. If you want to be organized, you start putting different pieces of data or different objects as we, uh, my programming background started with like object oriented as it's called. So that lets you think of a state of an object and then how it connects to other things. So when I'm explaining this, it's in that model. So if you're organizing, say, a online store, you would have a sheet in Excel for your product. You'd have a sheet in Excel in another sheet for the properties or the attributes, and then you'd have a third one which is product attributes. So you'd put this product can have these attributes, and these are the custom values. Attributes maybe say if you're doing clothing, color and size of the attributes, but then product attribute is product X is blue and extra large, and then there's another one for small and medium. So the database is a representation of that same sort of data, but it allows you to have the relationship between table like product and size, product attribute, and the attributes managed in a better way. So you can't put data in the wrong table because the reference data doesn't exist. So it's got built-in constraints and logic similar along that way. And there's a lot more that they can do, but it's technical and no one needs to know on that side. So a lot of the systems they just give you a representation of the data that's in the database. Whether that is, it looks like Excel when you're looking at it in the systems, you're going to have a giant table with everything, or you'll have a details page. Once you click into a record, then it's pulling data from separate spots that it all related and displays it for you. But once you get your head around, as you mentioned, if you understand the fundamentals of sort of how they work or how they organize data, changing to another system isn't too difficult because everything is either coming from the database or going into it. And then it's just what are they calling the object to figure out where you're going and which section of the app you're in.
Yeah, thanks, man. You did that in a very good way, not too technical of explaining that. I like that, and this is the way you got to think. Simple, right? It's all database there, and it's just how it's visually being represented and all connected to each other. I love that.
Yeah.
So, so a lot of people, and I talk to people, from time to time, going, "Hey, like I've got these programs, but maybe there's something better, something I can create, or maybe connecting things together, right, and things like that, like APIs, that you know about to connect, different
Mm-hmm.
software together." Whether it's customizable or not. So before, what I'd like to maybe just touch on first is let's talk a little bit about the stages, right, of this, because I think this is important. A lot of people just think, hey, yeah, I just get an idea, and then all of a sudden it's just in a few days this new thing will be created, right? And it's ready to go. It doesn't work like that
No, it never
exactly.
does.
So do you want to maybe give
Yeah.
a
So this is probably the biggest passion we have in the business is planning. So there's lots of stages in development. Most people, the way people expect it to go is get an idea on a napkin or think of something in the middle of your sleep one night and go, yep, I've got an idea. Go talk to a developer or a team, tell them what you want, and then 3 weeks later come out with an app. That's not going to happen. And at the moment with AI, everyone thinks they can just do the exact same thing with AI and 3 minutes later have an app instead of 3 weeks. So it's accelerating that misconception that it's easy to build software and it's quick. So we've got a story. If anyone's heard my podcast, you've heard us talk about this before, or if you're a client, you would have heard us tell this story. So we've got a process called Dev Ready, and Dev Ready stands for development ready. So we have to get you development ready before we get into development. And that's the same if you're going to build a house. I always go, this analogy is the perfect one for people to understand. If you go to a builder and say, I want a house, what are you going to get at after that conversation? If you gave them the budget and they went and built your house, you're not going to get what you wanted. If they're a good builder, they can ask you, what do you mean? What sort of house? Go talk to the architect first. Similar concept with us. You need someone who can plan the software, understand your requirements, understand where the business is going, ensure that you're going to get some return on that investment that you're spending to deliver that software. And then once you've got a plan in place, you can then implement it, and then you have to verify that it's delivered correctly. So the main stages are you've got your design, planning. You may do a wireframing step so you can visualize the text, like the text-based plan and what comes back. There's implementation. There's an internal testing by the development team to make sure that they've delivered and developed what they've expected. Then there's like a user acceptance testing, where as the person requesting that software of the vendor, I then check that it's delivered to the specs that were defined at the start of the project. If you've got a different list than what the developers are using, you can end up in two different places. And then you go out to production and you release it. So now it's in use. And then that's where most people think it ends. However, software doesn't die unless you let it die. It needs, if you're going to keep using it, you have to keep maintaining it. So you got to give it the quarterly updates because everyone uses different components off the shelf to build small pieces of software to get it done faster. Otherwise, each build would be multi-million dollars. So all those packages and frameworks and underlying technologies that we use all have their own update cycle. They all have different security issues that are found. So you need to then patch them and keep them up to date. But that's the core cycle. And then Dev Ready is what we've presented as based on a project that failed effectively. So we developed a product for a global lens manufacturer. They manufactured about 80% of all lenses for glasses and some camera lenses. We built software for them, which was like a touchless kiosk software for third world countries where there wasn't much internet and it was going to be very expensive to get a touchscreen software. So this hardware device that we would use called Leap Motion, you'd put your hand in front of this thing and it'd detect where your hands were in space, and then you could use your finger like a mouse cursor or a touchscreen. Delivered the product. We thought we asked all the right questions at the start. He took it to a trade show and no one in the business wanted to use it. They said it was a waste. So a year of development, delivered a great product, technically worked, and it was awesome at what it did, and then it never got used. It's like, all right, how do we not just plan the right product, but ensure we're talking to the right people so the product can get used, make sure that there's ROI in there. And then a great example of making sure we're doing that process with another client that we've gone through, we went through and spec'd out a HR system for them. And the unique thing about this was they're going to start bringing in all these like cartoon characters, like caricatures that were the DEI, so it matched every sort of personality. It was going to be mix and match, and you'd set up these base ones and dynamically create one for yourself. And I think it was like $350K to do the implementation at that point. I'm like, all right, we advise you not to go ahead with this project just because the cost of building and what you're using it for, which is onboarding contracts, there's no ROI there for the business. They took the learnings that came out of that entire process, and a year later they won an industry award for their HR system and the implementation of their contracting system based on the learnings that they took out of the process, configuring an off-the-shelf system. So it's really plan and make sure that you're planning for the right reasons, not just to have software. Software is the tool, but you need to make sure it delivers value somewhere.
Yeah, I love that, man. Thanks for breaking that all down. And the key thing that I would say there is having that subject matter expert, ideally, like, either one or multiple of them that understand the requirements well, right? So you can ask the right questions and you're taking everything into consideration. It's funny because I get people from time to time, and just the other day got someone saying, "Hey, can you help us build a new system? We want to connect things, we want to do all this stuff." And then I know systems and know the industry very well, right? So it's like, okay, well, I don't develop, but I could get someone like Anthony in to help with that process. And I could be the SME because they might not necessarily know it as well as me, even though I'm not in their business, but I understand how it works very
Yep.
well. Right. So it's interesting, right? On if ideally you have the people, or you've got to make sure, and there normally has to be a champion, right? Like somebody in the business has to sort of be the owner, or the super user, or the champion in that too, right? To make sure that it's going well and everything smooth over time too.
Oh, definitely. So when you're scoping the project, it's our process is a series of 3, 4 hour workshops back and forth and trying to understand things. But you do need someone inside the business to drive it, because we have to have information coming from you're the domain experts. You understand the industry or the problem you're solving. We become mini experts in everything. So at the moment, I am learning. I understand clinical trials, FDA labeling laws in America for food products, locum and pharmacy industries. I've got a cleaning business that's franchising. Like there's a lot of different things that we're understanding to be able to deliver the right product. But that's only going to take us so far. We can't spend 10, 20 years in an industry and become the experts like the people we're working with. So we really need the knowledge to come from someone who's been in the space, understands it, knows what they're telling us is correct. They don't have to go and validate a lot of it because they've been in the space. But then the champion inside is also the person that's going to help drive the project internally and make sure it doesn't fizzle out. We don't want a design process to go on for a year when we could have done it in a month, because we can't get meetings with the right people, or we can't talk to the right stakeholders, which are just like the end users, the people involved. But then the champion is more important once it's actually deployed, because most software has a problem with change management. Once you go into a business, you have to change people's processes. You have to change the way they work. People don't like change, as you would know. It's one of the hardest things to do, is get someone to change what they're doing, because they do what they've always done, and that's probably the worst sentence in business. But it's understand having that person that's going to drive it internally. They can be like the expert that can help everyone figure out what they have to do. Something's challenging, then they can come to the team or the next level of support. But those champions are critical to make it either drive the initial direction of this is what we need to build, start the initiative even, because a lot of people just continue doing what they're doing and don't think about how to improve things.
Yeah, I love it. So true, man. That's really awesome. So, we're wanting to build something, right? Now, I guess we're if we're working towards this, how how can we get it to the point that we want to get it, right? So the way I'm basically saying is maybe a better way of putting this
Yeah.
is, because a lot of people think like they don't know what's possible, right? That's probably the biggest one that I would say. It's like, I sort of want this. Can you sort of make it work, right? And the possibilities are almost endless in a way, of what you can do, if you
Yep.
can think about it. So maybe a better way of structuring this question to you is: do you want to talk about some possibilities, like things that you've built, connecting things, custom things, or whatever, as much as you
Yeah.
can, just generally?
So
Yeah.
I can cover it. So in these 17 years, we have worked in just top level is basic websites, WordPress integrations with plugins, integrations with ERP platforms like SAP or some other smaller ones or custom ones as well. We've worked with IoT, so Internet of Things, which is like sensors and devices. We've done Raspberry Pis, if anyone knows what those are, little computers that you can connect things to. We've worked with medical equipment. We've created 2D games, 3D games, simulation software for students and education centers, mobile app, website, and like APIs, which is the bread and butter of any system. And then there's even, I think that covers most of it, iPad stuff and things like that thrown in there. But understanding what's possible is difficult. And unless you're in the tech space and can connect the dots to things, it's hard to figure it out. So one of the most interesting ones, which is probably not going to relate to a lot of people, but we worked with a robot that was built by the University of New South Wales Field Robotics Centre. So they generated a robot that looked like the Mars rover. So it was commissioned by this group in Victoria called the Victorian Space Science Education Centre, and they have a room set up that looks like the Mars surface. That's red lights in the dome, rocks, and red sand. They had this a robot built, and they're like, all right, we want students to control this, and that's the brief we were given. So we had to understand how the robot works, come up with a way to track it using an overhead camera with lights and understanding which direction it's in, do a calibration so you can move and understand the speed, and then build software that will allow students to pretend they're like in mission control. So they can take something, it should say, go move to this rock, and then to drive to that rock, and they could see it on the camera. So the client didn't know how to do it. They didn't know what they wanted, but we were able to put together a couple different things and deliver a solution. But then what else is possible is you've got automation tools now. So that's at a real technical earlier side, the robot. But in a general business one, it's Zapier, Make, NAN. All these tools allow you to do automation to be able to deliver a workflow in an automated way quite quickly. So a really simple one that we do internally, which is we're going through the process of redoing our website and we've got to write our case studies. Very slack at collecting case studies over 17 years. So we have three. I've built up a list. We've got 70 we need to collect from that we've collected data from over the years. And I'm like, all right, set up a Trello board because it's the easiest way to get like tasks organized in my mind. We put in all the information and then we set up an automation that as soon as something goes into the next column, we'll start an automation which will then go to ChatGPT, take all that information, draft a case study in a format, and then update the ticket with the comment of the article, and then move it into the next column. So now the person knows when it's ready. And that's a really simple automation, but it saves a lot of time. And that's something that someone may not know you can do with the tools that are around anymore. If I had to write that from scratch, you're probably looking at a week or 2 weeks worth of work to do that. But it was a 45 minutes while I was listening to a meeting where I didn't have to be 100% present, getting an automation set up. Like it's just a lot more capability now than where 2 years ago or even 5, 10 years ago with what's available and how commoditized everything's become.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Thanks for those examples. I think that points a lot. And you mentioned ChatGPT there. I think we got to talk about AI now as well because it's last 2.5 years or so, right? It's
Yep.
been massive since ChatGPT came out, and now there's there's thousands every week, right, of specific
Yep.
tools coming out. And what I'm seeing is a lot of off the shelf tools, including AI and what they do. And then people obviously creating their own AI platforms, and AI is being part of that as well. And AI even being part of the development process to some
Yep.
extent, right? As well, too. So, do you want to, tell us your thoughts about
Yeah.
AI, how it's
So
being integrated with everything as well?
before
Yeah.
we do that, all the off the shelf tools you're seeing, is most of the integration like a chatbot that they've brought in, or are they actually using AI in a smart way?
It depends, right? I think if they're like I'm seeing some of the knowledge management systems or things like that. So it's like there's
Yep.
an AI in there. So it's like, hey, where do I find this? Instead of going to find the SOP, right?
Yep.
It's like, you just ask the
For
AI,
easier search.
and it's easier search function as an example, right? Of what I've seen within platforms. But some of them can be really specific, obviously custom ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Majority of tools that are operating in, if they just trying to get on the bandwagon, they're just adding a chatbot into their app. Now they're now AI enabled. Um, for everyone that is listening, AI has been around since I think the early 70s. That's when the concept first came around. So it's artificial intelligence. It's meant to replicate the way our brains actually work. So neural networks, the neurons in our brains, and how the pathways are connected. So that's what's the underlying technology of like the ChatGPT. The breakthrough that they had, and then this is what the AI phase that we're in, is the ChatGPT era really, where it's at its most basic level, is predictive autocomplete. So if you remember on your before we had these smartphones, if you remember like the T9 dictionary on the old Nokias, you'd hit a letter and then it'd start filling out the next letter for you. Then you do that again. And now on the new keyboards we have, it'll start filling out the whole word after a letter. ChatGPT, all it's doing is it's predicting the next word from the words you have typed before. But it doesn't just use the previous word, it uses like the entire sentence or the entire 4,000 characters or whatever it may be, which is what you understand is the context length. So it's amazing. I use it every day. We build tools with it and we've got our own AI platform that we're utilizing it. But it needs to serve the right purpose. So it's not just dropping it into a tool, it needs to actually save you time. So having that ability, it's so commoditized now, everyone can do it, but a lot of people aren't getting the right value out of it. Like a demo that we set up for a client is he runs a locum management system. So for anyone listening who doesn't know what a locum is, it's a temporary pharmacist. So in Australia, if you run a pharmacy, unless you have a pharmacist in the store, you can't open the doors. So if a pharmacist owns the pharmacy and they want to go on leave or they're sick, they have to get a replacement to come in to run the store for the day. And on their platform, it's like the Uber for locums. You can say, I need a shift. I need someone to fill a shift and someone will take it. They do the work and they get paid. We developed a really quick prototype where using Twilio, we purchased a phone number. Someone can call that number. We get a transcript of the message, and then that can then turn into shift description that goes into the system, and then the person gets an email back with, "This is the shift we just created." So Twilio to handle the phone calls, and then ChatGPT to transcribe, understand the transcription, and turn that into an object. So that's an excellent use for it, and it's not very hard to do these days.
Yeah. I love it, man. Thanks for sharing. One thing that I've always wanted to, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, right? Is I'm sure everyone gets a lot of emails, right? And I've always heard a lot of talks going, would it be just nice if the AI created all the drafts, moved all the things into folders that were just, there to get, you subscribe to and stuff like that? Is it easy enough to integrate things into like Gmail or Microsoft, things like that into the emails?
So I haven't turned on anything like this yet. I know you can do it. So there's those the platforms make and they can take incoming messages. You can set up rules to the AI and it can pass them. So you may say it's important, junk, spam, and give it a couple categories, and then it can create it, and it can also even create your draft for you. So there's definitely tools out there that can do it. I think Copilot in Microsoft may be able to, it gives you replies, but in my short time playing with it, I couldn't see it doing the like triage on the inbox. But that was a poor platform. I think Copilot didn't do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I was doing a podcast with on our one, and someone mentioned that they've jumped full head first into the Google suite. So they've gotten rid of Microsoft and on that, and they've got a really good integration in Gmail, better searching, able to find things. So probably that's built into that a lot more.
Yeah, and a lot of the big guys like Microsoft obviously is a ownership into ChatGPT for everyone, right? That's what the Copilot
Yeah.
is, and then Google's got Gemini and that involved. So they've got their own sort of big ones in the big guys, but then yeah, anything else custom outside of that. I guess the other big one that I'm seeing, and it's a lot of the people that have these CRMs I see integrating, or they could be separate, are around like the AI employees, or with the messaging or the calling
Yep.
even is starting to come into it, and all that sort of side of things now, where you talk about saving time and
hmm
money potentially from team members. So yeah, what are your thoughts around that and what
Yeah.
you're seeing?
So
Yeah.
there's two bits to sort of the CRM side. You've got the CRM tools where they're using AI to like scrape data from websites and populate your CRM with richer data. So let's get the person's job description, their phone number, and email, and try and find all those. And then you've got the other version, like you said, you've got the inbound, outbound calling, and those AI employees, it's what everyone's calling agents. So you had the ChatGPT the previous year and a half, and now everything's agents, agents, agents. And you're getting a lot of people saying, "All right, I'm going to have myself, another employee, and then a team of agents that will be doing everything. Here's my marketing agent. Here's my support agent. Here's my other one." Those agents are effectively it's ChatGPT or another large language model under the hood, but each one is instructed to do a different role. So if it's the marketing one, it's you'll create content around our business. This is our strategy, our brand, our direction. If it's a support one, you'll tell it, you're the support agent. You're meant to answer a query. Here's our knowledge base. Here's information on the product. And then you give it the ability to access tools. And those tools are like respond to an email, send an SMS message, write a chat. And then each one will have different tools that they have access to. So that's where the big change is going. Um, I think that's going to be very difficult to get right initially, and a lot of people are going to need tools to make those things because it's not easy to even develop them at the moment. But that's where the biggest change I think will be coming over the short term, where on a productivity basis, where you've got not just a ChatGPT window on the side, you've got a suite of different focus roles that are assisting you to move something forward or drive a direction.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely interesting, safe, and the voices and stuff are getting a bit more realistic and stuff now, and having conversations. So
Oh,
it's
they are. I was testing. So in 2023, it was now, when everything first started coming out, I'm like, all right, let me see if I can just make a YouTube video that sounds like me, but it's not me. So I generate a script, give it to one of those things, trained my voice, and put it on. It sounded like a dodgy American impersonator of me. So that just must be like it was trained on US voices more than anything else. But now there's some that are indistinguishable when you're hearing them. So there's a lot of celebrities and in like fake ads that people are endorsing things using their voice because it's trivial to do that now. It's like might cost you $1 to get a voice made up.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think you started to become interesting about like how to pick these things up. You can sort of tell still now. It's probably going to get to a point where it's going to be very close. But
Yeah,
I think that the authenticity side, right, of things will be coming out a lot more, especially on social media, other things
it's going to
like
be a
that.
challenge.
Yeah.
You already everyone has a problem with fake news and spam and phishing emails as it is, But then having the ability where you see a video or an audio clip that doesn't sound like a robot like that, or they actually got the little nuances in the way people speak or the intonation, or they like the S's and the T's and the T's and the way people say them. If they can capture all of that, then it becomes a increasingly scariest place because how are you going to know what's real and what's not? So a lot more critical thinking is going to be needed, but we're not training that skill anymore because we just ChatGPT, what's the answer to this?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? How things are changing and yeah, thinking outside the box, very, very important. Let's talk about what a lot of people talk about now, right? Because there's the development side, right? Like you talked about all those processes and we get it live. But then after that, you mentioned a little bit about maintenance, but really there's a hosting element and there's even potentially even some costs involved depending on how it's structured, right, with AI and stuff like that around processing information, right, as well,
Yeah.
depending on how complex the system is. So there's that ongoing cost. Do you want to talk a bit about, I guess,
Yeah.
those two types of things too?
There's a lot of hidden costs. I will call them that. They're not hidden to us, but they're hidden to the people who don't know. So hosting costs, like you have your website, you have to put it somewhere. Depending on how many users your app has, will determine what sort of requirements you're going to need for your hosting and your server. With Microsoft Azure, Google GCP, and Amazon AWS, they're all specific cloud providers. So they take care of the servers that people used to have in their offices before for you. So you don't have to worry about as much of the infrastructure or need like a server administration team to take care of things. But there is a cost to running all of those. And then there's going to be a cost to having the redundancy. So if you've got a mission critical application and you need to have 99.99999% uptime, you're going to have to duplicate all your resources and have two sets of everything. So if one fails, all the traffic goes to the other one and it can keep running. So you've now doubled your ongoing cost for your hosting. Other things people don't realize are when we use those off the shelf components to build like a calendar UI in your product, there are free versions, but there's also paid versions. Paid versions, you generally get better product, better support. You may not pay after the first year, but now you can't get it updated. So you get security problems, you start again. But then you may go into a yearly maintenance plan with them, and now you get new updates and things come through. Then there's also, all right, if you need to send emails, there's email processing services because you don't want to send thousands of emails from your personal email account because it'll get marked as spam. That's a consideration. Then there's certificates. So to make things secure, you got to pay a certificate, whether it's yearly or every 3 years. Another thing to worry about there. And then on the AI side processing, I call it an unbounded cost. So everything else is almost fixed. You can sort of predict both usage, and then on servers, you'll know, all right, we're at 60% capacity. We should be able to go up another 20% before we need another server. Based on the number of users, you'll know how many you have. On the AI side, you get charged for every query. So every query, you send data to it and you get data back. There's a price for the amount of data you send and the price for the data that comes back. ChatGPT at $20 a month hides that from you, so you don't see it. But when they say you've hit too many messages today, come back tomorrow, that's them setting a limit on how much you can spend at that tier because they know what that cost is. So that's an unbound cost. You don't know how much you're going to spend based on how much people use it. So that's going to start becoming difficult to model, and it's not like it's a per seat license; it's a consumption model. It's almost like electricity. It becomes like a commodity at that level. It's just you want to operate. That's what you have to spend based on usage.
Yeah. And then it also, from my understanding, right, it depends on how much data is there, right? Because if you've got big databases, a lot of lines, like if you've got hundreds of lines, okay. But if you've got millions of lines or things like that of data and you've got a lot of things going on, then it's just more power that's needed, right? To be
Yeah,
able to
correct.
get it.
It depends what you're doing as well. So if you are a data analytics company, you're going to go into what they call big data, which is just a big amount of data. So then you need to do a lot of processing. It takes a long time to crunch through all of that data. So you need more faster or more powerful resources, servers, more memory to be able to get through that faster. So if you want the difference between you getting a result in an hour from a report or in 2 days will be how much money the person spent on the server and how long it takes to process that. And that's really what it comes down to. But then if you're doing, I was speaking to someone who's a physics lecturer at La Trobe, and they said that they're running simulations on these servers that they get donations to use supercomputers. And it's like they're running simulations and they're utilizing the entire thing of like 1,000 server cluster to run
Wow.
simulations to test their hypothesis on whatever they're working on. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you've got a data entry system, you don't need a lot of processing. You need a decent server that can handle the load, which is going to be probably any basic to any, not basic tier, but like the first paid proper tier. 'Cause a lot of them have a basic free tier. It may even be enough on that, but then you don't get guaranteed uptime. So you almost pay for what you like. You get what you pay for in this sort of model. But then, yeah, the more processing, the more work you need to do, the more you need to utilize the resources you have, and then that will either increase the cost or just delay things, and it'll take longer to do everything.
Yeah, the joys. And I think it was important for everyone to know, right, that this is realistic. You've got the ongoing, you've got the upfront cost of the design and build, etc. You've got then the standard hosting type of maintenance cost, and then you've got if you're processing that. And I think the big thing for me that I've found, we did a big project, right, with SAP, my previous company, where we got defense as a client, right, and I sat with IT for 9 months to build a system where our system talked directly to them. You know what I mean? So they would
Yep.
book a job and would go straight to the truck, right? And that was a big process, right? When you've got high security systems, etc. There. Now, what I think, and where it fell down because of budget. Now this is, we're talking multi-million-dollar project, right?
Yep.
But where it fell down at the end, that I always tell people about, it's about the reporting, right, out of it. Because number one, yeah, yes, you can have the best system, but if you can't get the data out in the way that you want to get the data out, then it's like it's not a full system, right? It's like
Yep.
you're a Ferrari in first or second gear instead of using it to its full potential, like thing like that. So do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah. So
the
the
reporting side and all that? Yeah.
reporting can be difficult because a lot of people don't know what reports they want when you're scoping a system. And that could be what you hit into, whether it's they said they needed X. Once by the time you actually get to the development, you understand how it works, then you've got a different idea in your mind of what's actually possible. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what's possible at that point either. But the reporting, there's a few ways you can approach it, which is, all right, let's export CSV data. Now you can generate whatever you report you want. That's going to be the most flexible and easiest to implement. But if you want to have a really polished system, you have going to have dashboards and reports in there. That's going to take a lot more effort because it's not easy to build those and build them performant as well. In your case, you would have had a lot of compliance and security requirements, and they may not have allowed you to access all the data and to generate as reports because there are probably security level clearances and different things needed. But having the system, like you mentioned, is one thing. It allows you to do the action. The reporting will then give you the clarity and the confidence that the action is being done, and these are the outcomes of that action. So whether it's a CRM just tracking activity and making sure that people are getting the right number of emails out, versus a system that is recording jobs correctly so it can invoice the end user the right amount of money based on what was performed. They're all different kinds of reports, but not what people expect. So then you can generate aggregate reports across them, and then you can start using AI and other tools now to then get insights into all of that data as well, which you then make business decisions on because you can't make the decision unless you know what's happening really.
Yeah, cool, man. I love it. I think it was a very powerful question answer, and I think very aware for people that there's that other side to it, right? And that could change the scope of the project, right? You know what I mean?
Oh,
If you want
definitely.
to build some things, because it's like, oh, I want all this extra custom stuff. Well, we can do it, but it's
Yeah,
going to take more time to build it. But then
exactly.
it could be worth it, right? Because that could save you heaps of time and get some really unique insights, especially if you're custom building something, right?
Yeah.
On the area there to get it really awesome, man. So love that, man. You shared so much value with us today, Anthony, mate, with all of that, and really giving us a really good deep dive. That's what I wanted today, of like how it actually works, right, with software. So you don't click your fingers, AI does everything. It doesn't work exactly like that. There's a lot of steps and a lot of things that's involved in the process. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
So if you're really anyone that's looking to do a software project and bring something into the business, just stop and think about what you're actually trying to do and what's it going to do for the business. If you can't figure out what it'll end up doing, whether it's increase your revenue, save time, or be a branding marketing exercise, if you're not clear on that, don't start doing anything. Sit down, plan, and understand what you're trying to do, or get in touch with someone like us or others in the space who will take you through a process to help you plan and build the right software. Just don't jump in too early because you'll build the wrong thing. And the most expensive project is one that doesn't work. And there are a lot that don't work. I think the global stat is 86% of all software projects fail because people jump in too quick. So just avoid yourself the headache and don't jump in too quick.
Yeah, love it, man. Completely agree. And get the experts in like yourself, mate, to do it properly the first time. You might, invest a little
Definitely.
bit more at the start, but otherwise it would actually be a lot less over time because if you invest all this
Oh
other stuff
yeah.
and it doesn't work, then
Yeah, most of our projects are what we call rescue projects. So we're the second or third time they've tried to build the product. And we
wow.
call them that because we've rescued them from whatever problem they were going in.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's being built
Yeah.
and then fixing it from there.
And all start again. So sometimes that has to happen and you've got to tear it down and start again. And that's not, you don't want to tell that to anyone because it's, some people have mortgaged their house to build a product and then like, all right, I'm done. I can't do anything else now.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I love that we're highlighting this to people, and then if you do it the right way, you can create something really awesome that can be
Yep.
unique to yourself and the industry. Love it, man. Awesome stuff. And yeah, we connected through our networks. We learned about your awesome journey from having various tech roles to now being the co-founder and CTO of Aerion Technologies.
Yep.
You're awesome guy, mate. So knowledgeable. I could tell the tech side extremely well from our discussion today, and I'm sure you continue to help businesses supercharge their business success with AI and process automations. I'm very grateful that we connected and being on your podcast as well. And look forward to partnering together as well. So Anthony, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, it's Anthony at aerion.com.au, so AERION. Our LinkedIn, we're all over. If you start connecting to me or Andrew, you won't stop seeing my face or his all over social media. It's just a fire hose of content. Our website, aerion.com.au, or if you look up my name, Anthony Sapountzis, you'll find my personal Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I'm all over the place, so I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. I love it, mate. We'll definitely check out Anthony there, email, website, socials, all of that to get more info and just, value as well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, mate. And thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for taking it easy on the question side. I'm not normally on this side of the seat, so thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.